Millions of buyers are sitting on the real estate fence because they're waiting for the market to turn their way. But at the end of the day, you're ready to buy a house when you're ready to buy a house. When your walls are closing in on your growing family, or when the house is too big because your kids have moved out. When you're sick of paying someone else's mortgage, or when it's time to retire somewhere new. Buyers can't wait for a market shift. They need a clear path forward and wisdom from real people. That's where How to Buy comes in. You'll join me, Leo Ansoliaga, as we hear how to buy stories and advice from real buyers and the professionals who help them along the way in mortgage, real estate, insurance, financial planning, contracting, appraisal, and so much more. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Today, I'm joined by Libby Rodriguez, who works alongside of me at Luminate Bank, leading our renovation and construction division. Libby plays a key role in building our clients navigate one of the most misunderstood areas of financing: how to buy and renovate a home, all with one cohesive plan. In this conversation, we break down how these loans actually work, who they're best suited for, and how the right structure up front can give buyers more control, flexibility, and confidence with taking on projects like this. Let's get into it. Well, you are in for a treat today. I have been privileged to get to meet Libby in years past as not only a savant when it comes to all things renovation loans, all things construction loans, but the lead of our renovation department here at Luminate Bank. And the reason why this is a treat is because these types of products have been something that, in the past, perhaps, clients have asked, to learn more about. And yet we did not necessarily have an in-house platform to support it. And so I'm excited because Libby and the construction team have opened up amazing opportunities for all of you listeners to learn about. Libby, it's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Leo.
Well, you and I have had a lot of conversations around the topic of, renovation loan, construction loans, and how this benefits not just your consumers that are out there, but also a lot of the partners that we serve in this area. But before we get started, Libby, maybe a little background on yourself, like, how do you even begin, to dive into this environment in the lending space, and tell us a little bit about, how you specialize over the years in terms of this section of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a little unique whenever I got into this business. I actually started out doing kind of unique financing. So for me, I've never really known anything different, which has been great because starting with that just kind of gave me already a little bit of a leg up. And I've really just been able to kind of hone the process and hone my skills over the years of doing this, right? Because I have done it for my entire career in lending. It's really great because it just kind of helps set us apart a little bit from, just other offerings that are out there. And we're so big about our process and just making this kind of easy for everybody. Sometimes construction or renovation can sound a little bit scary. So I've really just kind of taken the approach that I want to make this not so scary for everybody. We want to make it not too difficult of a process because inherently there might be some things that happen with renovation or construction along the way, right? We all understand that, but the financing process really doesn't have to be so difficult. So just over the years, with that being a really big priority of mine, it's really kind of helped me not only hone in again my own skills, but just really build a team and a department that can really shine through with that.
Yeah, and what a great introduction overall to your journey. I mean, nobody wakes up on a Saturday afternoon and says, "I'm going to go finance, new construction or construction projects, rehabs." It's been, like you said, a series of events that has led you to where you are today, and now, partnering with us, in our team, in our practice, on all things related to rehab and construction loans. I mean, now let's dial it back, right? Let's kind of zoom out for a little bit because let's be honest. I mean, some people might not even know what we're talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
construction lending or rehab, loans are a unique product that a lot of institutions just quite frankly don't either know about or understand it. But most importantly, they don't understand or know how to, structure these. So can you tell us a little bit about what a construction loan is? What is a rehab loan? Give us some context around those two items.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little bit different than buying a home that's already existing, right? With a construction or a renovation loan, we're essentially taking kind of that regular loan and we're adding a renovation or a construction component to it. Now, these are going to be a little bit different than maybe going and just purchasing a new construction from a builder where the home's already built. Or these are going to also be a little bit different than maybe you're watching the home get built along the way and you've contracted with the builder, but the builder is the one financing construction. So these are going to work a little bit different because we now have our client, our consumer direct individual. They are the ones actually obtaining a loan to finance either a home build or the renovation of a project. So we're actually providing a loan where we're closing on financing prior to any construction taking place or prior to any rehabilitation taking place. So that's what makes these a little bit different. Um, in terms of that as well, kind of the way they work is we do our closing on the financing upfront. And then that money that we have set aside for construction or renovation will essentially have in what we call an escrow account. So we'll escrow back all of that construction or renovation money and we'll disperse it along the way through what we call a draw process. So
Mm,
there'll be periodic payments along the way. This is all already factored into the client's financing. There's different types of programs available for this.
mm.
But essentially, in short, a construction or a renovation loan is going to be a loan provided to the consumer to finance construction or renovation, where we'll close on that financing upfront before anything is started.
Yeah, and what a great distinction, that you're making there even, right? Like you're essentially putting the actual consumer in the driver's seat, right? With these types of loans, a lot of times consumers think that they're restricted to, just a new construction project that exists, or, something that's super cookie cutter. But in reality, I mean, if the stars aligned, these products allow the consumer, to dream, perhaps find a property that needs some TLC, or perhaps something that needs to be knocked down all the way to the foundation, or maybe, buy a piece of raw land and build on that piece of land from ground up. We're really providing the control and guidance for consumers that are looking to do those types of projects.
Yeah, absolutely. It just provides for some more customization, right? There's a lot of builders that'll build a house and finance it, but typically a client is going to be a little bit more limited on the financing, right? Or excuse me, with their choices and their finishes and things to that nature. Or renovation can sometimes be a little bit difficult for people to find financing on, right? You hear about hard money loans.
Mm.
Not that there's not a place for a hard money loan, but that maybe isn't the best option for the average consumer. So this just really unlocks kind of that dreamer mentality, as you were mentioning, right? Somebody with the vision on what a property could be or should be, or maybe it's almost there and it just needs kind of those final touches. This definitely unlocks that potential for the consumer.
Incredible, incredible. And let's dig a little deeper here, right? And I think, to your point, this is not necessarily for everyone, right? I mean, I think if you're buying your first house, and you obviously are not looking there to stay for more than a couple of years, perhaps something like this could make sense, but it's usually the people that are looking to, to maybe like customize their house. Let's talk about the consumer as a whole. Like who are the clients that could benefit from something like this, and what are some of the things that you have seen in the past that have been helpful in that process? Give us a little bit of insight in terms of who is taking advantage of this, primarily as it relates to construction and renovation loans.
Yeah, great question. So, as you mentioned, I mean, really technically anybody can take advantage of it, right? Where I really see this fitting, let's talk about renovation first for a second, right? Because that might look a little bit different between renovation or construction. So for renovation, I think really it kind of depends on where the client's at in their journey and a little bit of what the market is doing. Over the last few years, we've seen times where the market's been a little bit challenging. And so maybe we have clients who are first-time home buyers or not first-time home buyers, and maybe they're not the cash buyer, right? So they are a little less competitive in the marketplace potentially. Or maybe they're a really strong buyer. They just don't have the cash flow to do a 20% down or to go buy a project and then rehabilitate it on their own, right? So I really see this fitting in with rehab specifically for the consumer who's probably owned a home before. Again, don't have to, but I think somebody who's owned a home before and maybe they're having challenges in the market, whether it be with a competitive offer or just finding exactly what they're looking for. We have a lot of people who are also maybe nearing retirement and kind of want to find their forever home, right? But they're just looking on the market and they're just not finding exactly what they're looking for. But maybe they don't want to take on a new build because there's not any vacant land in the area where they are, right? So maybe they just need to find that house that maybe it's been sitting on the market for a little bit, or maybe it hasn't, but maybe it's just not a perfect home that's getting a lot of attention, but they see the potential and what it could be for them. And they just need to find a way to finance it, whether that be with a little bit of a lower down payment, or just a property that maybe wouldn't pass an appraisal as is. Maybe it's not habitable at the time, but they've got the vision. They can see that it'll make sense financially in the long run with an equity position and things to that nature, where they again can just make it exactly what they're looking for. Another great thing I see is helping with multi-generational living, right? We see a lot of that, a lot more of that in today's day and age than we did even 10 to 15 years ago. This is a
Mhm.
great way to kind of renovate a house, right?
Mhm.
And kind of provide for that, whether it's making, two master or primary bedrooms, or maybe it's, just adding an exterior door to one bedroom of the house so it can have a separate entry, right? Maybe it's still considered a single family home, but just kind of allowing for some of those different niche things that again, you may not be able to just find readily available, or if you do, they just go really fast and it's taking, a large down payment and that sort of thing. So I think helping those that maybe need to renovate and have a little bit of a smaller down payment, or again, those that just need kind of something special or have a vision of what they want to live in and they just can't find it in an existing property.
Yeah, and what a great distinction that is, because I think you're right. There are obviously in our marketplace a lack of inventory in the majority of the DC metropolitan area, and I would argue there's still some issues with inventory nationwide. Um,
Mhm.
and so if we don't necessarily see, the property, and I always tell clients, that buying a house is a process of elimination, not selection. You eliminate by location, style, and price. And the rule of 85, which according to the National Association of Realtors says that you're not going to find something that's going to meet 100% of your criteria. But if you're at 85%, that's usually a good indicator. Well, why is that? Well, according to the National Association of Realtors, you're going to make about 15% changes in that home the moment you move in, right? And so
Mhm.
we're not finding that though. And that's been the case in some places. This is an incredible product, an incredible way to perhaps find something that needs some work, a lot of work, and make it your own. It reminds me a lot of past clients of ours. We'll call him Pablo and Anna. I think that's her name, so we'll just call them that. That was their case. They weren't necessarily seeing something that that fit their criteria, and they found a property that needed a lot of work, and the renovation product was a great fit. Now, Libby, I mean, I think it's important to also note though that, and I've said this to clients that we've done renovation loans with in the past, this is not your traditional loan. There's a lot more people involved and it's a lot more work. But as long as the actual clients are fully aware of this, right? So frustration is always the result of unmet expectations. So as long as the expectations are correctly set, and that's longer timeframes to close compared to your traditional, financing, more people involved in the equation, right? Like contractors, consultants, et cetera, and the amount of work and lift this will take upfront. As long as they understand that, I mean, it is an incredible, incredible product to deploy. Talk a little bit about that because I don't think a lot of people, talk about the expectations, right? It is going to be some
hmm
more work than your regular transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. It's definitely a little bit more work. We do want to, of course, set those, expectations for everybody up front and just kind of set the stage on what they can expect, right? As
Mm,
I mentioned before, there can definitely be some things that come up with renovation or new construction. Some things are avoidable, but what we can help control, right, is that process up front. So one of the things to keep in mind with these loans is since we're closing on the financing upfront before any purchase takes place or the renovation gets started, we have to understand what our project is, right?
mm,
So, just as if you were buying or refinancing an existing property and we're going to order an appraisal to check the value, one of the things that we're going to do is order a pre renovation or a pre construction appraisal. In order to do that, again, we have to understand what is the scope of that project, right? So, one of the big things that will help set everybody up for success is understand that if we're looking to do this program, we really want to make sure that we start early and looking for some partners that we want to work with. That's going to be a contractor first and foremost, right? That's something that, agents may have already a little bit of a Rolodex on contractors, right? You can always go online and start looking up contractors, but finding a contractor that you want to partner with is going to be one of the first steps. So we definitely need to identify who that contractor is going to be. The client gets to make their selection on who the contractor is. We do have to do a quick registration with our bank. That's really just making sure that the contractor is licensed and insured and they have a little bit experience because these are a little bit complicated, right? We want to make sure that everybody's got a little experience in their wheelhouse. So finding that contractor up front, getting them registered with us, that's one of the biggest things. And then going ahead and getting the contractor out to the property to get a bid on what exactly the renovation budget is going to be. And again, that scope of work. We have to have that before we can even order the appraisal again. So it's really key that we're finding out who those partners are going to be, who are going to be the key players, right? Again, the contractor, making sure that we get them registered with us. And then we've got a bid that's broken down between material and labor cost with a scope of work so we understand what that project is going to be. That can move as quickly as the clients move. So that's one of the biggest things that I think can be a little bit of a pitfall with these products and just not meeting timelines and expectations is not understanding that. So if we understand that up front and we know exactly what needs to happen to get us to the point where we can order an appraisal, that's going to be huge. Another key player, depending on the loan type, is going to be a HUD consultant.
mm,
One of the renovation loans that we allow and that we work on are FHA 203K loans. There's a couple of different 203K programs. One of them is called a 203K full or standard. And that requires the use of a HUD consultant. So a HUD consultant is somebody who has some licensing through HUD, the agency that works with FHA loans, right? So we have to have a HUD consultant involved that's going to act as kind of a liaison between the client, the contractor, and us as the bank. That
mm,
HUD consultant, it's really imperative that we get them out there really quickly, really probably at the same time as the contractor, because they're going to provide an inspection and a report and what we call a work write-up that details all of the work that may need to be done on the home to meet
mm.
FHA criteria, but it'll also take into account all of the work the client wants done. That report is really key because we need that report alongside with the contractor's bid. to get that appraisal ordered. So really the biggest things again up front, especially if we're in a purchase transaction, is making sure that everybody understands we need to identify the contractor, we need a bid, we need to understand the scope of work, and then depending on the loan type, we may need that HUD consultant involved as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds simple enough, but that takes time, right? And I think proper planning prevents poor performance, right? And I think to your point, aligning the people with the product and also the process is super key, right?
Mhm.
You said something interesting just a little bit ago that we'll move as fast as the client kind of moves, and as fast as these third party partners will move. But there still obviously need to be a process in place to follow with
Mhm.
this particular product. But at the end of the day, a lot of it hinges on the people, right? So like one of the things that we've said in the past to clients that are thinking about renovation loans is this, right? Like, the people you surround yourself with are probably the most critical pieces. We would like to think that our firm, specializes in this, and we would love, an opportunity, to showcase that for you if you're thinking about, doing this, and allow you to see real time what something like this could obviously look like on the product side of things. But then the people side also includes the real estate partners that you're with, the builders, right? I mean, in my neighborhood, there is a specific builder. I think his name is Michael Wood, that that is doing a lot of renovations in our house, right? And a lot of people have trusted him to do these renovations. But surrounding yourself with people like Michael Wood, right? Surrounding yourself with people like Jonathan Smith, et cetera. Like those are critical pieces that we need to vet in advance, and that obviously takes time, right? But then also the real estate professionals, right, that you surround yourself with. I can't tell you how many times, we've had conversations in the past with people that are thinking about doing this. And although the work that they're considering is amazing, what matters here, as you pointed out, is the end value. Like, the bank is not going to lend you more than what the property is worth. There's certain parameters around, those items, but partnering with someone or with a real estate professional that understands the market, can run, at least high level market analysis for the work that you're doing is super, super critical. And if you need a referral to, one of those partners, I mean, we have a database nationally that we have access to of all the top producers that are moving the inventory and are really the 20% of the 80% rule. But lastly is also like financial advisors, right? I would love to tackle the advice around this whole concept of generational wealth transfer. Right? I would like to talk a little bit about what you mentioned, right? Financial advisors' main objective is to protect the assets and to essentially create safety and liquidity for their clients, right? What an incredible way, to do that by helping their clients, perhaps people that haven't thought about this, perhaps looking at people that are looking at a second home, perhaps people that are thinking about, upgrading their property, or maybe doing renovations, for aging parents on their home, instead of, maybe, refinancing the entire thing, cashing out money, and then being short. This could be an incredible product. So can you talk a little bit to the advisors or financial planners that are currently serving these types of families?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as you mentioned, multi-generational living is kind of a big one. And so I do think there's a lot of people out there that think that in order to build or renovate, whether it's existing or, brand new, that they have to have cash, right? That may not make sense, right? Maybe the market's down and we say, hey, it would make more sense to preserve the cash that we have and
Mhm.
finance some of this, right? We have those types of options, and we can really work with, you as a financial advisor to kind of tailor what makes sense. And maybe it's something where they want to take a little bit of cash out, or maybe, somebody is needing to take a distribution and let's figure out how to use those funds, right? Maybe we finance a portion of the renovation, or we do make a little bit of a larger down payment. So I think that there's definitely a lot of strategies that this can help with when you're looking at as a financial advisor, working with your clients and doing what's best for them. Another thing, right, is just kind of the environment we're in and where prices have gone. And maybe it doesn't make sense to buy a new home for somebody that's looking to, have a retirement home, right? Or plan for their parents. So this is just kind of a great way to unlock some additional value and unlock some additional strategies to be able to use where maybe going out and purchasing something, either cash or based on today's prices just may not make the most sense. So I think these are just different ways to kind of get creative when you have a client that maybe is working on a certain financial strategy, or Leo, as you mentioned, just building wealth, right? This is a great way to help somebody if they're wanting to build a real estate portfolio. We do have a couple of investment options where people can purchase these homes and, renovate them and then set them up as a rental property. Or maybe it's somebody that's starting out and kind of trying to build that wealth over time. And we need to get maybe a little bit of a smaller property, but they need some renovations, right? To kind of get that to where the property is habitable and they're going to live there for a few years and then, upgrade to their next home, right? So I think there's just really a lot of ways that these products can help kind of fill in that gap and just help really, strategize for overall what the clients are looking to do financially.
Yeah, and what a great synopsis because by definition, a financial planner, an advisor, they're looking to prevent taxable events, right? A lot of times, clients think, well, in order for me to do this renovation, why don't I go ahead and just cash out all of these gains that I've had over the last 5 to 7 years. But what they don't realize is, man, like we're probably in our third or second double in terms of the compounding effect of interest. Why are we going to create a taxable event here when we can actually leverage products like this to expand the current footprint of our house, expand the actual layout, perhaps buy a new one, or like you said, maybe look at potentially looking at investment opportunities in the future. Um, that to piggyback on that, I think real estate professionals also, have a missed opportunity here, right? A lot of real estate professionals that perhaps, work in a high density and high fast paced market like the one in DC in the metro area, don't necessarily see these as viable options because A, they've had a bad experience in the past with these. B, they think it's way too much work and it just takes way too long. And C, maybe they don't necessarily see the opportunity, but we're working on one right now, right? Like for a buyer that's looking at a property in DC that's been sitting on the market for quite some time, that this could be a phenomenal opportunity for them. So talk a little bit about that. What advice would you give real estate professionals, that perhaps have not considered this product or these types of products for their clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great way to move some inventory that may have gone a little bit stale, right? So just as you mentioned, Leo, the client is looking at a property that's been on the market for a while. Maybe that's a distressed property. So maybe this is a way to provide some additional options for those who can't come in and purchase the home cash. Maybe we need some financing, but the property again won't pass an appraisal. So it definitely can help distressed properties, maybe that have gone stale or haven't, just to provide some additional options, not just to investors, which again, sometimes we know too, if you're only marketing toward investors, you may have to get a little bit creative with pricing strategies, right? And you might have these investors come in and want a low ball, right? So this is just kind of another way to again open up that inventory to people that might be wanting to have this home as a primary residence or a second home, and maybe can see that overall picture, and it's not just going to be a short-term flip, so they're a little bit more invested. I think it's also great for properties that maybe they're not distressed, but they're just dated, right? Maybe it's this home that's in a fantastic neighborhood, but a lot of the homes around it are upgraded and this home just isn't, and it needs some cosmetic updates. These programs are a great option because we don't have to do major renovations with them. We can come in and paint and replace countertops, very basic things like that. So it's another way to kind of unlock that potential on a home that maybe is just dated or Maybe it's a home that has kind of a funky floor plan, and it's just not
Mhm.
really meeting the needs of the neighborhood. We see a lot of the time where you have younger families starting to come into these older neighborhoods because they're great neighborhoods, right? But maybe
Mhm.
those homes were built during a different time, and it's just not really conducive to the way that a young family needs their home to be set up, or needs to be able to live in that home in today's day and age. And this is really a way to help bridge that gap, because we can move walls, or again, as I mentioned, maybe the layout's great and we just need some of that cosmetic updates. So I think it's just a way to, again, unlock some additional options for some homes that maybe have gone a little bit stagnant, or otherwise would only be open to investors or cash buyers.
Mm. Yeah, and that's good. And I think that's the misconception that a lot of times real estate agents have. It's like, well, this is a type of property. And let's kind of go to the buy side, because I think you brought both of them. They ignore, or perhaps don't take listings that have been sitting in the market that are distressed seriously, because they're like, wow, our clients don't necessarily, have the funds to be able to do this. What an incredible opportunity. Or they'll say something like, an investor is going to come in here and just completely take us out. Well, not
Hmm.
necessarily. An investor is not looking to live in the property. They're looking to flip this at the highest point possible. And therefore, they're going to most likely lowball this offer. And so if we have a great strategy and a great plan, this could be a phenomenal increase in inventory for the buyers that are currently looking. But to your point, on the listing side of things, I'll never forget
Hmm.
this lady. Her name is Christine. She was probably the only one that used this product with me so well. She essentially, had properties that, that needed some TLC, right? Like I had a property in our neighborhood, where, the family that owned it, I mean, were original owners, right? And the gentleman that came in, and the family that came in, worked with Mr. Michael Wood on it. I mean, it's not one of the nicest houses in the neighborhood, right? Well, guess what? Like those types of scenarios do happen also on the listing side of things. So Christine would paint the picture. She would say, look, this is what's possible here. Here's essentially the footprint of the house. Here's what's possible in terms of what you can do in this particular home. And here's how you can actually make that happen. I mean, what a great way to be able to paint a picture for a potential buyer to come in and say, okay, wow, I now can see the possibilities, and I now have the actual how via renovation loan. So that's great advice, from a real estate agent partner, and what something like this could unlock.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we all talk about it from the financing side, right, with buyers a lot, but you're absolutely right, Leo. It's helpful on the sell side too, because they can show that vision, and maybe you spend a couple bucks to just get some renderings on, hey, this
Yes.
is what this could be, right? We all see that, right? We all see some, simulated images online, right? So there's definitely different ways you can help move that. And it's not this is what it could be, it's this is what it could be. And here are the resources to do that and to make that happen.
Yeah, correct. And that's essentially what Christine would do. She would essentially, have a builder come in and say, "Here's what's possible. Here's some renderings of what this is like. Here are the options. Let's touch and feel, and then here's the how. Here's essentially how you can
Hmm.
accomplish this." Well, that's great. Let's close with this, Libby, because I think a lot of people that, quote unquote, offer these types of products, are not very good at this, right? And therefore have really turned a lot of people away from even contemplating these types of products. What's unique here about Luminate Bank, and what the bank, have built here, shout out to Eric and Taryn, for their vision, is we really have, a unique model in the sense that we are not brokering this out. We're not sending this to a third party. We are not sending the underwriting to another party. We're doing this in-house. And we're not just doing this in-house, we're doing it, with people, with professionals, and an entire department led by you, and your staff and your team that have been doing this a very, very long time. So talk a little bit about the differences of why it's an advantage for people to partner specifically with Luminate Bank.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as you mentioned, Leo, These transactions are being done in-house. So a lot of the pain points that we hear from agents, clients, any partner in the process is that, if they've had a poor experience with these financing types, generally it's a product of it being a brokered transaction where the loan officer working on the deal has a little bit of know-how or maybe has a little bit of knowledge, but they're having to work with another party to make the loan happen. As you mentioned, Taryn and Eric have made a very large investment within our construction and renovation division to help us build it to what we've built it to today. And what that means is, again, we're doing everything in-house. So we're not sending these programs out to another company to basically essentially provide that financing. We have our own dedicated processing team within the division. We have our dedicated underwriting team within the division. So these are people on the production side that understand exactly how these programs work. They understand how to look at the loan to value. They understand the documents required. We will also have a renovation or construction specialist partnered, with you and your team. So your team is wonderful. And we come in and just help make sure that all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted to make sure that everybody understands kind of that timing up front again. And we can lay out, hey, days 1 through 15 or days 1 through 30, this is what we need to be focused on. And then, day 15 or 30 on, this is what we need to be focused on. Another thing that's really key with renovation is making sure that we are not only protecting the client and the collateral,
Mm,
but at the same time, we're not creating any cash flow issues for the
mm,
contractors, right? You definitely need to make sure that we're working with a contractor who has a little bit of a cash flow. But these are not loans where we're expecting the contractor to float all of the work until the home is completed. So, one of the big things that can cause some headaches is once the loan is closed, what is that draw process going to look like for the contractor and the homeowner afterward? A lot of companies that do these farm those services out to third parties. We don't. We handle that all here at the bank. We have a dedicated construction management team that works directly with these contractors on getting those draws dispersed. We do
mm.
have guardrails in place. We're going to order an inspection to check off that the work has been completed. We're going to do a quick title update to make sure that we still have clear title and, there's not a bill that went unpaid that resulted in a lien from a subcontractor or something to that nature. But we're working with a team and with people and with partners who know exactly what it takes to get those funds dispersed and do it in a timely fashion. I hear all of the time, unfortunately, people talking about, yeah, well, I went through this bank and, it took 2 weeks to get a draw processed. That's not good, right? If we can't get draws
Right.
processed and get payments sent out in a timely fashion, that just halts the job and it's going to make the process go even slower. And the last thing we want to do is us as the bank be the holdup on the project being able to proceed and proceed in a timely fashion. So all of our team in-house, whether that be from the production side to you guys, the processors, the underwriters, the closers, all the way to the backside with our construction administration team that helps make this happen on the backside. Everybody's been in the industry for a while. Everybody is specialized. I like to refer to my team as Navy SEALs, right? They're just really good at what they do. And
Mhm.
it just makes that process that much more manageable and a little less stressful, for everybody along the way because it's inevitable. Maybe you're all of a sudden having to decide, okay, well, this is the paint color I want, or I think I want these cabinets, or I think I want these countertops, right? So if we can just kind of alleviate that stress on how those draws are going to work, that's really helpful for everybody. And again, it's all done in house.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it, right? So, to be able to have control of all things A to Z really is what allows the process to flow seamlessly, right? And I talk about that all the time. The audience is probably tired of hearing that same language over and over again. Process is greater than than anything else, right? Like everybody sells the product themselves, but it really boils down to a seamless process, right? A process that
Hmm.
has guardrails, a process that has real clear expectations, beginning to end. And you have done a phenomenal job of putting all of that together here, with the construction and renovation department. And I'm extremely excited to deploy this to our database. And so if you're looking, or if you're a client that's thinking about, buying a house and perhaps have not even considered this, reach out to me, reach out to our team and say, hey, Leo, like, this is something that is on the radar. If you're a financial advisor or a financial planner that has some of the pain points that we discussed and perhaps have not even considered this is an incredible viable option for you to present, to your database. And of course, if you're a real estate professional, absolutely use this as an incredible opportunity to not just help buyers buy more houses, but ultimately also sell more properties in the future. Libby, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a really great educational process for us, and it's a real treat, to have you on today.
Thank you. You and your team are just absolutely fantastic. So we love partnering with you on these products and, look forward to just continued success with it.
Thank you.